good evening.
And go.
Hello and good evening, everyone. We'll let everybody come in and then we'll start proceedings. Yeah,
Sounds good to me.
let's see. Let's just have a look at chat. See
Nobody's
who's.
in yet, but like,
No, well, we don't want to be talking to
and,
ourselves.
hey, you gotta start somewhere, right? I mean, heck, when I first started out, I did that. I talked to myself, and then people started naturally coming in.
Well, that's it. I mean, you've got, like you say, you've got to start somewhere. I think it takes a while for YouTube to send notifications.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And we got 5 people watching. What's up to the 5 people watching? What's good? What's good? What's good? How are you guys this evening?
Yeah, how are you all? Nice to be here again and part of the
Hey,
nation.
Motel, what's up? How you doing? Anthony, what's up, buddy? But all right, we got people in the chat. You ready to get this
Right.
going?
Yeah, we'll let's go. We're just talking about not victims but survivors. We're talking about a subject that's very close to both mine and Cyraxx's heart. That being quite a hard subject, really.
It
Um,
definitely is for
Something
sure.
that's some may find distasteful, but it's definitely something that needs to be talked about. And
Absolutely,
unfortunately,
and yeah, and unfortunately, like you said, this subject is close to us. Very unfortunately, so fair word and warning if you guys are sensitive to this kind of stuff or like you're very squeamish or anything like that, or like you get disturbed very easily. Just fair warning, you might want to click out this video. But as for the rest of you guys, this is our stories of surviving rape, unfortunately.
yeah, like I say, it's a difficult subject to talk about.
It really
It's
is, because I
something
haven't
that
talked about, right, because I haven't talked about mine since God, 2013, I think it was the last time that I spoke about it.
really that long. Wow. I
Yeah,
think
it's been a while.
I think it's a lot harder for males to talk about. I know that a lot of men find it emasculating, embarrassing, a lot more than
Right,
females do.
right,
And
exactly, and that's the thing is that like it happens to both males and females, unfortunately. And at first, I'll admit, I was very scared to talk about it. I was very, closed off from the subject. I was very, you know, how do you put it? Like, I was very sketchy about it. I didn't know like how to approach it. And then, I found some groups on Facebook that, helped me out through the situation and helped me get over it and get through it. And they definitely reassured me. And it's a group that I'm still very close with to this very day still. And, they definitely did help me and, reassure me like, hey, you're not the only one that goes through this. This happens to many people of all ages, unfortunately.
yeah, and also it's something that apparently 1 in 4 college students are raped. I'm not sure whether that's fact. It might be propaganda. What we're going to do
Yeah,
tonight is we're going to Chance is going to talk about his story. Then I've got a story on behalf of one of my family members, and then we're going to drop the link in the chat. And anyone who's got a question, please, or would like to talk about anything, please come up and speak to us.
yeah,
It doesn't necessarily have to be this subject, but we can have a bit of a continuation from the other night. But we'd
yeah,
like to just talk about this first because
yeah,
it's
absolutely.
important to us. So do you want to
Absolutely.
do you want to start the ball rolling with
Yeah,
this, or
for
do you want to
sure.
wait until?
Yeah, for sure. Yo, Jamie or Jamesy boy, what's up, man? Hey, Biscuits, what's up, man? How you doing? Been a minute since you've been in here, man. Where the hell you been at? Yo, Sid, what's up, dude? But
Biscuits is an original, isn't he? You know,
yeah,
it's
he's
been here a
definitely.
while.
Oh yeah, it has been a while. Dude, Biscuits, where you been at, bro? It's been a minute, man. Yo, Junior, what's good, bro? How you doing, buddy? Also, shout out to Tange's family member. What's good, man?
I don't.
Speaking of which, how's he doing anyway?
He's fine. He's in the UK, so I doubt he's listening because it's going to be very late there.
Yeah,
But I'll get him
absolutely.
to. I mean, we'll leave this up anyway. I'm presuming.
Yeah. Yo, CJ, yo, CGC, what's good? Yeah, I hear you, man. I don't blame you, dude. Because YouTube can be pretty brutal at times, not gonna lie.
It can, but I think because it can be. I mean, this is going to be hard to tell this story, but
Right, because like I said, I
make
haven't. Right, it's definitely gonna be hard for both of us. So, like I said, for those of you that do want to judge, like it is what it is. But like I said, I've not told this story since, like I said, 2013. So like it's definitely been a while, and it's definitely been something that I've definitely wanted to talk about. I just didn't know like how to bring it up. You know what I mean?
yeah. This story as well. I mean, when we were talking about it the other night, it's got quite a lot of
Yeah.
detail to it that's important to the whole story. And
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
I just wanted to, I mean, the age of you and the perpetrator, and what happened afterwards to you with the victim blaming. It all makes a very interesting and disturbing story, don't you think?
Yeah, it definitely is disturbing, and it's also like very interesting at the same time. I mean, as much as it sucks, it definitely is. It's interesting, but not in like a like it's interesting in a weird but kind of it's just weird all around. But like unfortunately, the way that it came about, it does unfortunately happen to a lot of kids. Back then when I was around that age and I was a teenager. Unfortunately, it does happen to people like that a lot during high school, and it goes unspoken about quite a bit. And what happened to me does happen to quite a few people, unfortunately. And it's sad. It's sad to say that happens, but it does.
Do you want to start from the beginning then, very beginning, and
Yeah,
tell
yeah,
me?
absolutely. So if you guys don't know, like some of you guys might know me from North High School because I'm pretty sure my boy Matt's probably watching this. What's up, Matt? I see you, bro. But as you guys know, I went to North High School here. I moved up here from Florida with my family, and hold on, just a mouse. But I moved up here around 2007. We had moved up here actually shortly after Hurricane Charlie in 2004. And we had, like I said, we had moved up here in about 2007. We came up here, moved up here. We were homeless, living out of the back of my mom's car for a little under a year. We ended up here, ironically, soon after we had found an apartment for a short time. But during that short time period, that's when everything just it started out very, very good, but then just went super south like really fast. Which I will admit, because of this incident, I actually did meet my best friend that everybody knows, which is Jake. Like, so there is a little bit of a good side to it, but there's also that very dark side that I didn't speak about. Which is, like I said, don't judge. This is very tough. Like, me and Tange spoke about this outside of YouTube, and like, it felt good to speak about it. So like, I'm gonna try to take it that same way. But unfortunately, when I was about 16, 17 years old, God, I can't believe I'm about to talk about this, man. This is crazy, but I do
No,
feel
it's
like,
okay. I'm with you. Just
yeah,
I'm
like,
with you. Don't forget that, you know.
yeah, I know. It's just like it's one of those things that like you don't really want to face, but you kind of have to in a sense. So like, this is a good thing here. So
It's a good
like,
thing, yeah.
unfortunately, yeah, like, unfortunately, when I was 16 to 17 years old, around that time period, I was actually raped by one of my best friends from high school. Now at the time, I didn't know that he was gay. I had actually met this kid. His name was Billy Seiler. We had gone to the same high school together. And me and him grew really, really close. We were super cool with each other. And at first, like, I didn't take him as gay. Like, I just took him as, being, that weird kid in high school that's just like really strange and like an oddball kind of person. Like, that was him. And like, I took it at that. I was like, yo, like, like, he was really cool. He was super chill. He was actually the guy that actually introduced me to Linkin Park. Ironically, he had gotten me into their music, so like, I started listening to them. And there was one day where he came over to my house, and like, we were hanging out or whatever, and like, during that time, like, he just kind of like put his arm around me, kind of like what Jake does to me all the time. Like, he kind of gave me a hug like that. And like, during that time, like, the way he did it made me suspect that he was, but I wasn't entirely sure. So I was like, okay, whatever. But okay, it is what it is. But there was a day where we had some like city people working on our street, and I guess one of them had to cut the power to my street. And the way our streets were was like, we lived on like a street that was like this. So like, this whole block was one street, and then down this way was another. So when our power went out, keep in mind, I did not know that Billy had lived on the same street until he had walked down the street. And he was like, yo, like, is your guys' power out? Because like, we noticed people over here working or whatever. And we were like, yeah, but like, it came back, like, we're good, whatever. And then like, later that night, they started working again and whatnot. And unfortunately, the power was out for that whole night. So my mom had to work that night. So she was like, hey, why don't you just go ahead and walk over there to Billy's house with them? And I was like, all right, cool, no problem. I'll go over there, stay the night over there. Not a problem, because, I had school the next day anyway. So I was like, fuck it. Just crash over there, go to school with them next day, whatever. Well, me and him were over there. We did the typical things that you would normally do. Like, we would sit there, play video games, listen to music, annoy the shit out of his older sister. Like, the typical stuff, very typical teenager esque stuff. And yes, for all y'all wondering if I was a rebel as a teenager, you bet your damn ass I was a fucking rebel. I was the worst. Let's be honest. I was the worst fucking rebel. Ask my mom. She'll tell you. I was bad. But like, we were over there hanging out, whatever. And it was time for us to hit the sack. So we're like, fuck it, let's just pass out, put on a movie or whatever, fall asleep, go to school, whatever. Well, yo, Detroit, what up, man? But whenever we started passing out, I was like literally the first to fall asleep. I was halfway asleep. I was like, oh, I'm so tired. Like, you know how like when you're like in that in between area of like being asleep and awake, like you're like right in between. It was like that. Like I was literally like, and I didn't know that this was gonna happen. Like literally, I was laying there completely out of it, half asleep. Okay, just literally half asleep, not knowing what was gonna happen, completely unaware. And like next thing I know, I feel something behind me, and I'm like looking around, thinking like, oh, that's probably just his dog because he had a dog that would, come in the room and hang out or whatever. I'm like, okay, whatever, his dog's there, whatever, cool, fine. Let him pass out. I don't give two shits.
Chance, can I just ask, did you mention his disability? I can't remember at the beginning.
Oh yeah, that is something that I did forget to mention that he was half blind, but they legally labeled him as blind for whatever reason. I don't know why they did full blind instead of half. And I think the reason why is because he had to have those special canes that like roll around so that blind people can feel stuff. And keep in mind, I didn't know that he was gonna do what he did. Cause like he could see like the general outline of things, but he couldn't like fully see. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like he could see like the general outline shape of things. So like he did have a disability in that regard, but the guy was smart as a fucking tack. I'll admit the guy was super smart. But that
How
night
old was he? Was he the same age? Was he a year or two younger than you?
he was he was literally like about to be the same age as me. I was 17 at the time. He was 16.
Yeah,
He was getting ready to be 17, and I was just getting ready to be 18 that year. So like it was
yeah.
like right in between. But like I was saying, like we were laying down. I felt something up against me. Figured that it was his dog coming into the room to lay down because his dog always slept in his room. It didn't matter where he was at; he was right there sleeping. So I was like, "All right, cool." His dog's passed out by me. I don't give a shit. I've had dogs do that before. I'm used to it. Whatever. I'm laying there half asleep. Next thing I know, I feel a fucking arm come around me, and unfortunately, like I felt my pants get ripped down, and from there, everything happened. And before I knew what happened, I fucking see him on top of me. So as soon as I seen that, I literally reached my elbow around and I like got him like right here on the jaw because he was up high enough to where I could, get him. So I fucking reached around. I'm like, yo, get the fuck off me, dude. And he was literally sitting there like, what the fuck? Like, like he took me as being gay when I clearly wasn't. And I had told him this, and I guess he was trying to, force that on me by doing what he did, unfortunately. And next day, we went to school after I had packed my shit up and I went back home. I had let my mom know what had happened. Um, so, I had, stayed there with the power off, didn't give a shit at that point. I was like, I'm staying home, fuck this.
Mm.
So we went to school the next day and he had seen me later that morning and was like, he had wrote a note saying that he was sorry and whatnot, that he didn't mean for that to happen. And at that point, I was just like in complete disgust of like, how can you do that to somebody like that? And be sorry about it. Like, what the fuck? So, I was
Sorry
like,
to interrupt. Can I ask you something that's quite important, please?
yeah,
Did he actually penetrate you?
unfortunately, yes. But he
Right.
wasn't in there long enough to really be able to do anything.
Right,
So,
okay.
so thankfully, it didn't go too far, but it was just enough to be like, yo, like you're about to get knocked out.
Wow.
Yeah, but like we went to school the next day. He had wrote a note apologizing, and I was still in complete shock and disgust. I was like, dude, like no amount of notes or letters that you write me could ever make up for what you've done. Like that's not okay. And I get a call down to the principal's office later that day, and I was like, okay, like I didn't know if I was in trouble or what, because that week before I actually did get into a fight with some idiot that wanted to start shit. So I didn't know if it was about that or if it was about something else. I didn't know. So I went down there to talk to the principal, and he had brought up the fact that Billy had told him what happened. And I looked at him, I'm like, okay, what the fuck? Like, okay, he told you what happened. And he apparently turned around, and this does happen to a lot of people, mind you, as sad as it is. Billy had turned the story around and said that I had done it to him, and which wasn't true at all. Like, I had the marks and everything on me at that time to prove it. I had still had scratch marks on my arm from where he was trying to keep a hold of me, and I had even told Billy, I was like, "Show me your fucking lip where I fucking elbowed your ass, like show him." And he was like, "No, I don't have to do anything." Blah blah blah. And the principal didn't force it,
Mhm.
and unfortunately they had to expel me because he was underage at the time. And the principal was like, look, I kind of figured like this wasn't you, because like he had talked to Billy and Billy's parents and family, and the principal had them take him home. And when I sat down and I talked to the principal by myself with my family present, um, he had said, like, look, I know you're not a bad student. I know you wouldn't do anything like this. But unfortunately, due to the age that he is, and you being the older one, I'm going to have to expel you to keep this from, happening again. And I was just like, I was in shock. I'm like, really? So you're just going to let him like go like that? Like, why isn't he getting expelled? And why am I to be the one to get expelled? Like, he did this to me. It wasn't the other way around, like he's saying. Like, that's not fair. And he was like, I know it's not, but due to protocol and, the rules that they have to abide by, because of the age, he was still a minor. And I was like, I think like 6 months away from being 18 at that point. And due to that, they were like, we could have you arrested, but we're not going to do that. We're just going to, expel you and put you in another school for, your safety. And we also know that you're angry, and we don't want you going off on another student and hurting anybody. So, unfortunately, they did have to transfer me to another school, and we fought it for a month. We were like, dude, like this isn't fair. Like, let me go back to my original school. Because North High School, where all this went down, that's where I met, some of my best friends at. That's where I met my friends of the band Sandcat that everybody knows by now. That's where I met, some of my best friends. That's actually where my best friend Zach went to school at. The one that was shot and killed in his family's restaurant. That's the school that me and him went to together. and whatnot. So like that school was very, very near and dear to my heart. It was very close to me and still is. Like I still go there every now and then to visit and say what's up. But soon after that had happened, we were trying to fight it. It didn't work. Um, and it's
What did the police say, please, hon? What did the police say?
the police were there, but they said thankfully I was still underage, so they couldn't really, do anything.
What? So
But
they were
they
victim blaming as well?
not really. They weren't victim blaming, but due to the whole age gap thing, they kind of had to be like, you are the older one. You should have known. And I explained to them, I was like, look, I didn't know. I had no idea he was gay. I did not know this. I didn't even know that any of this was going to happen. Unfortunately, I had no idea. And they're like, okay, well, like they weren't victim shaming, they weren't blaming anybody, but they were going off of the whole, the age difference. I was 17, he was 16 at the time, so like he was the younger one. So unfortunately, due to, that being as it was, they had to look at it as, okay, he's a minor, he's an adult kind of situation in a certain sense. So that's when they had made the decision. They were initially gonna have me arrested and thrown in juvenile hall until I was
Wow.
18. Yeah, they were initially gonna have me convicted into juvie, and then when my birthday hit, they were gonna try me as an adult. But once the principal sat down and spoke with them, they were like, look, like, he's not a bad kid. He's actually very good. He doesn't, do shit like this. It's not like him. It's not in his nature. And my mom even sat down and spoke with them as well. And they had all agreed, instead of, you know, putting me in juvenile hall and, giving me a record that would ultimately affect my life, affect me for the rest of my life, they came to an agreement of, okay, since this happened, to keep it from happening again, we're gonna place you in another school. That way, you're in one school, he's in another. You guys aren't near each other, which ultimately is what led us to moving to the house that we're in now. Like that's kind of what led us to this house and what led me to going to Garfield High School, where literally within like a week, I met, my best friend Jake, who everybody knows by now. He's literally like my little brother. Like, I can honestly say I couldn't ask for a better friend at all. Like, he's literally one of my closest friends, hands down. But unfortunately, that definitely is something that I've had to deal with. I've not spoken to him since then, and I don't hope to, and I honestly don't wish to. Honestly, like after that, like it was very hard to speak about at first because of the fact that I had been victimized by this person, and I didn't know that this was a thing until like a few years ago when I wanted to, start talking about the different stuff that I had been through. I wanted to talk about, my story and my survival of, being bullied, surviving suicide. And I started like looking up all these groups on Facebook and whatnot. And I found one that I'm still very close to this very day. I'm still part of it and don't plan on leaving it anytime soon because I do, find, comfort in helping people through their problems on there. Um, but like I knew at some point I wanted to speak about what I had been through. I just didn't know how. So like, one of the members in the group, one of the admins was like, look, there's, all sorts of, victims that get put through that kind of stuff, and getting put through that kind of a situation that I got put through is actually more common than people think. Like and this is something I found out that actually is legitimate facts, is that when you're a teenager, sometimes that will happen. What the teenager will do is they'll go after somebody that's older, and then they'll turn the tables around after doing what they do. They'll turn the tables around and scream rape, and unfortunately, the person gets victimized, gets a bad reputation,
It's
and
usually somebody who's much older, though, isn't it? Not of a similar age.
exactly. It's usually like, and
Did you
unfortunately,
get a medical exam
I
like a
did.
rape kit
I did,
did?
and thankfully I didn't have anything. Thank God for that. I did get checked, and thankfully, I didn't have anything. Thank God.
And is
Thank
it
God for
something that you can still prosecute for, like, because of statute of limitations? Rape doesn't have a limitation on the time that you can, you know, press
yeah,
charges for it.
yeah.
So
No,
is it
and
something?
unfortunately, I can't because we don't know if they've moved. We don't even know where they're at. So really, like, even if we wanted to, like, there's no way that we would be able to, find them because when we go back on their Facebook over the last few years, like my mom had looked into it several times, and they've moved around several times and so many times over the years that we don't know where they're at, unfortunately. So it would be hard to to be like, hey, this is where they're at, kind of thing.
Do you
But
think the police would find them?
I honestly don't know. I really don't know. But like for me, like I'm not even like really, worried about tracking them down at this point. And the reason being, and I know this is gonna sound, kind of weird, but this is just, how I'm looking at it, and I know this is kind of a screwed up way to look at it, but I feel like, me going through that in a sense was, and I know this is gonna sound wrong, but this is just me speaking my piece and what I learned from it. I feel like to me it was like I kind of feel like in a sense it was a good thing to go through that experience as gross and fucked up as it is, because I'm now able to reach out to people that go through that stuff, and I can sit there and say, hey, I've actually gone through this. Like, I'm a survivor of this. This is something that I've gone through. This is a very real thing. And, there are other people out there like yourself that, that do unfortunately deal with this kind of thing, that do, have to live with that unfortunate realization that this awful thing, happened. And as sad as it is, it's like you said earlier. Matter of fact, we had spoke about this literally like right before the stream. That unfortunately this is something that is very common actually, as sad as it is. Like it's something that's very, very common that
Mm.
it shouldn't be common. It really shouldn't. Like, I honestly feel like it shouldn't be happening at all. And I know a lot of, people are now resorting to social media to do human trafficking, to commit these kinds of crimes. And it's all around just awful. It really is. So, if any of you guys out there are going through that, I definitely highly recommend, telling your story, reach out to somebody. Like, and I know it's hard. I get it. Like, it was hard for me to even speak about it when I first, found that group on Facebook. And when it first happened, it was very, very hard for me to speak about. Like, even last night, it was like so weird. But I also knew, that it was a good thing because I got to speak about it. I got to finally say, hey, this is what, I've gone through on top of these other things. Because, as a lot of people know, I am, an advocate for, anti bullying, anti suicide, as I am a survivor of suicide, of many attempts, along with bullying. So, like, this is one of those things where I can actually reach out to the younger generation, or, somebody that has gone through that, and be like, hey, you're not alone in this fight. Like, you have somebody here that genuinely understands, and you're not alone in that fight. And
How did Sally take it? How did your mum take it?
oh, she was pissed. Like, she was in disbelief that, like, he would even do something like that. Like, she was just like, what the hell? Like, he seemed like such a good kid, because he would always come over, he would always hang out, we would always play video games. Like, hell, there were times where he would stay the weekend and nothing would happen. And, like, it just kind of, like, threw her off guard, and kind of threw her into a state of, disbelief. Like, why would he, like, all of a sudden, do this? And I didn't understand it at first myself. And then, when it all happened and went down, that's when I realized, like, holy shit, like, this whole time, like, he had actually had the hots for me, and wasn't gonna take no for an answer. Like, it kind of, like, clicked afterwards, and that's when I was like, I'm glad I'm away from him, because,
Well,
no.
the fact that he was blind, did that kind of have an even bigger effect on you? The fact that, he did have that massive disability, did you
that
expect?
that did play a certain effect, in a way. Like, yeah, I kind of felt bad for the fact that he was blind, but at that time, like, I wasn't really thinking about that. I was thinking, like, oh my god, like, this
No, I
person.
mean, sorry, you've misunderstood me. I mean, did it have even more of an emasculating effect because he had this massive disability? I know some men, it'd play on the mind quite a lot that
Yeah,
just,
yeah, like, and I see where it coming from. And looking back, like, a few years after it happened, yeah, it kind of did for a while. But during the whole incident itself, it was more of a, oh my god, like, I can't believe this person that I saw as family would do this to me.
mm,
Like, and then afterwards, like, after the dust had settled, I was just like, oh my god, like, this dude that's literally half blind, that I saw his family did this. Like, what the heck? Like, and it made me really think, like, how many other people has he done this to throughout his time at that school? Like, it really made me think. And, soon after, I had spoken to the people on Facebook, because, I didn't really have any friends around that time that I could really open up to about it. And so I started talking to some people on one of the Facebook groups that I'm with. Like, that's when, like, I kind of realized, like, I'm not the only one that's going through this. There are other people out there like me, and that, I kind of saw it as, like, like, it did hurt, you know, at first talking about it, but, like, afterwards, like, it felt like, like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders, and I was able to be like, hey, this is something that I've gone through. Like, you're not alone. There are people out there like that do deal with this, unfortunately. And to anybody out there, that has dealt with this, or has any similar stories, like I said, please, like, don't be afraid to, you know, hop on YouTube, turn on the camera, and, start talking about it. Or if you don't want to, be on video, do a podcast or a recording or something. Hit up, groups on Facebook. Like, there's a lot of groups on Facebook that, have helped me out over the years. And I've also been able to help a few people as well. Like, so for me, like, to be able to say that I survived that and things didn't get very, very as bad as they could have gotten, like, I do feel very fortunate that, things didn't go as bad and that I can actually reach out, and help people in my own way. Like, before, we had started this stream, I remember I had told you, like, hey, if your brother ever needs anybody to talk to, I'm always here. My chat's always open 24/7.
Yeah, I mean, it did go, which I'll be telling you about, it did go through therapy and that did help. But I think it's
Yeah,
important that people should actually um be able to tell the police. I mean, I know this was some time ago, but I think with the hashtag
yeah,
Me Too movement being such a well, a success really, probably to the extreme where people are getting accused when they're innocent. But anyway, that's a
right.
different subject. But I do think it's important to be able to talk to the police and to be able
It
to report
definitely
such
is.
things.
It definitely is, and unfortunately, that's something that a lot of victims have to deal with, unfortunately, because it's so not, it's not that it's uncommon, it's just one of those things that does happen where the victim who's not really, the person that's claiming to be the victim isn't the victim, gets away with it. And that's an unfortunate thing that does happen, quite a bit, not just to teens, but to young adults and people of all ages. And it's unfortunate that that does have to, be the way that it is. But like you said, I feel like it's important to, put our stories out there and for others to tell their stories as well so that, people can realize, like, hey, I'm not the only one that's going through this. Like, there are others out there that do know what it's like, that have gone through this, that I can reach out to, that I can trust, that, I can talk to about what, I'm going through. And, to have somebody that, understands.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, when you spoke to me about it last night, I was a
Yeah.
bit concerned that I was shocked that the school system decided to well, persecute you, victim blame, that they wouldn't listen,
Yeah,
that
and that did suck because, like I said, that's where a lot of my best friends are at. That's where, my best friend David, who was the basis for the band Elixir, which would soon become the band Sandcat shortly after his passing, was at. That's where, my best friend, who was like my little brother, who unfortunately got killed in his family's pizza shop in 2015, was at. Like, that's where, my main, you know, tight knit group of friends, that's where I met them all at. And that was for me, North High School was like, it was like a second home to me until, that happened. And to a certain extent it still is like a second home to me. But also it's one of those things where it's like, like, I'm kind of glad that I got moved out of that school and they did things the way they did, because of the fact that, you know, not only was I able to get away from the person that did this to me, but I also, like I said, I met, my the dude that would become literally like my little brother Jake, that everybody knows by now as the dude that I wrestled with on live stream the one day, joking around. I had met him, um, another best friend of mine, Taylor, my best friend Christine. Like, I met some more people that would, become, some of my best friends and whatnot. And over the years, I have talked to, them about it, and I have, spoken, about it and whatnot. So they are, very aware of the situation, and even they agree, like, what happened, you know, wasn't right, but also at the same time, it's one of those things that was like, it was almost like it was like a it's meant to be kind of thing in a way, because of the fact that if I didn't go through that stuff, if I didn't get put through that, I may have never met them. I may never have, met Jake or, my friends that I have now. So for me, it definitely does suck that I went through it. But also, I'm kind of grateful because, I got to meet, some of the best friends that I'll probably be friends with for the rest of my life, honestly enough.
Um, well, I'm glad, I'm really glad, and well done for telling that. Well done. I think it'll feel like a weight lifted off your shoulders now.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And like I said, to anybody out there that is going through that situation, just know that there is help out there. There are groups on Facebook. There are groups on, all, lines of, social media, whether that be Facebook, Instagram, Twitch, Twitter, even here on YouTube. I ran across a few communities here on YouTube myself that you guys can reach out to and speak to people about. And I know it's hard, but trust me, once you speak about it and you talk about what goes on, trust me, you will feel 100 times better. Like, you will feel like a weight has been lifted. Like, I know it's hard, but just know that these groups that you can contact, they're not there to judge you. Like, they're there to help you, and that's something that I think that is very important, that anybody that gets victimized needs to have, is a good support system. If they need counseling or therapy, there is counselors that can help. There are therapists that can help. Like I said, I got fortunate enough, I had people that, you know I was able to speak with, and I did do a couple months of, counseling through a friend of mine that actually was in school to be a counselor. So, like, I was able to talk to them about it, and, what was going on, and they were able to help me through it. And I feel like because of it, I became a stronger person in the long run because of it.
Did
So,
it affect any relationships in going forward then with that you've had with your
not really,
girlfriends?
not really. Like, it didn't really affect me like a lot of people would think. Like, it didn't really affect me in that way, like most would think that it would. But like, what did affect me, obviously, which I have spoken about, which even about, that I've spoken about many times before on my last few channels, including this one, is, the abuse situations with mental abuse and verbal abuse. That did affect me to a certain extent. Like, that definitely did, have a lasting effect that, I've just very recently, ironically enough, when me and you got together, ironically enough, like, that started to, go away, and I started to realize, like, hey, I can let go of this. I can be myself. I don't have to worry anymore. It's all good, kind of deal.
Hmm. You sure can. Well, Avatar. What I'll do is now then, because this is quite a different story, and something that my brother was in a position where he didn't have anyone to talk to about this. It's such a different story, and
Yeah.
something that was so traumatizing for him, and people did judge. So,
Oh no.
well, he's given me permission to talk about this, and
Yeah.
he was quite. I mean, he's anonymous, so
Yeah, shout out
it's
to your
not.
brother, by the way, man. Shout out to your brother for giving you permission. What's up, buddy?
Yeah, I'm lucky that he has because I want to share this. So some time ago, I'm sorry, just give us.
And her mic is muted. Hello.
I just thought I heard something outside.
What's going on?
No, it's okay. I just checked. So,
Oh,
some time ago, and then I nearly.
we don't need a
Right,
repeat of a
okay.
couple weeks ago. We don't need a repeat.
No, no. Well, so some time ago, when my brother was 13 years old, he was also raped, and it was at a party that my parents were holding at the time. It was a summertime, they were having a barbecue, and they'd
Yeah,
organised this big barbecue with drinks, food, family games,
yeah,
and quite a few guests were invited, both
yeah,
family and family friends.
yeah,
And one of our family's best friends, kind of like, you know, when you get aunties and uncles that really are not aunties and uncles. It
yeah,
was
yeah,
it was that. Anyway, so
yeah.
they were invited, and they had with them Bailey, who was he was a big boy compared to my brother, and he loved to chase him around. He he loved to roughhouse in general, play hard with him, not understanding that he was, you know, that it was, well, he did understand. I think that's why he loved to actually roughhouse him. I think he was a bit of a predator, to be honest. He used to love chasing him
Yeah,
about. And he was one of these, he was spoiled rotten, and he always got what he wanted. And he
yeah,
always, he was always, he was an alpha, a definite alpha. And he was, he always had a glint in his eye. Looking back, he always had a glint in his eye for our Timmy. And it came to the point that he, in these interactions, my parents decided that really they shouldn't be left alone together. They were concerned, definitely.
yeah,
Unfortunately, though, on this particular day, because there were so many people over, and it wasn't just the two families, I think this got overlooked, and
yeah.
all of a sudden, and I'll remember this clear as day. All of a sudden, I heard my mother screaming and glass breaking and plate shattering. She just dropped all these things that she had on a tray, and I heard her screaming, and she'd been in the kitchen, and we found that Bailey had cornered him in the utility room. We had like a utility room off the kitchen, you know, where the like washer and dryer and everything is.
Yeah.
So, oh, when we found him, he was face down with Bailey behind him, and he was oh, humping
Oh
away,
my God.
and he was so aroused that despite like trying to be dragged off, that he wouldn't. And it came to the point where, I mean, this is just terrible, but Tim had pull shorts on that day, and he would manage to get, because the legs were quite loose and he was
Yeah,
kind of skinny. He managed to like go up between the shorts, and he did penetrate him. Unfortunately, that's why I asked, you know.
oh
And anyway, so. the only way we could separate them was my dad threw like some water over them. It was so humiliating, and that way they could. So he threw the bucket of water over them, and that way they just be. It was a shock, so they could separate them.
Yeah.
Afterwards, then after that, my dad took him to the hospital, and there were tears, there were anal tearing, and he had to have various injections, various inoculations, and of course there was psychological scars as well.
Yeah.
There was talks of afterwards. There was talks of putting him to sleep, but Bailey's parents, which you can imagine, really against it. And this is the part that's difficult. Bailey was a Great Dane. Well, I hate calling him that, a Great Dane. He was a hellhound, but it was the reason why. I mean, he was a massive dog, but he was a champion show dog that my uncle and auntie had, and they were so protective over him. But he'd always, I mean, they tried blaming me, saying that he gave him, that he egged him on somehow, because it was a dog,
Yeah.
that he egged him on somehow, and that it were giving him like signals to follow, and maybe like add a scent of chew sticks, and I don't know, but it was disgusting. So they were victim blaming, and he went through intensive therapy, but
Yeah.
every time he heard a dog bark, he wet himself. He wet
Damn.
himself. But just by the mere sound of a dog barking, it was terrible. And it cost. I mean, my parents were absolutely tearing their hair out because afterwards they spent an actual fortune on mattresses and bedding because he was wetting himself continuously. And one of the things, and this was not, I mean, this was totally unintentional, but they didn't know about actual incontinence pads at the time, but they got these puppy pads, like these puppy pee pads, and we're
Yeah.
putting them on the bed. And when Timmy found out and he saw what they were, he went absolutely wild. He wouldn't trust them then with anything because he thought that they were actually laughing at him. He's got such a complex that they thought that they were putting these pee pads down on purpose, like the puppy pads. So he had a total meltdown. Anyway, so he wouldn't trust my parents with anything, and had to look at it first visually to see if it had a blooming dog on it. Oh, anyway, and things like at the time there was that song "Let the Dogs Out," and like if you heard that or anything with like that song, "How much is that dog in the window?" That one, he just started screaming his head off, and he'd like run in a circle and flap his arms. It was terrible, like a PTSD.
Yeah.
So on the back of that, well, there's been a bit of a setback lately on the fact that he did have therapy, but there was a little setback. He discovered, and this was my fault, that Muslims hate dogs. I don't know if you know this, but Muslims hate dogs because they feel like that they're dirty animals.
Yeah.
So he turned to Islam, and unfortunately became a little bit radicalized, and he ended up egging he decided to do a bit of a terrorist thing and ended up going and egging a kennel.
Oh
Oh,
man.
so I mean, Bailey's a bit of a distant memory now. He passed away some time ago, but one thing that did happen, I mean, my mum and dad stayed friendly with my auntie and uncle, not the real auntie, they were just friends.
Yeah.
They were able to become the kind of, I don't know, against some mediation over it. I don't know if they were friends, but certainly they still like kept in touch. And towards the end of his life, this dog, this Great Dane, he required medications that from the vet that made him quite. He was really old, and they were trying to keep him alive as long as possible. And they gave him these medications that made him quite drowsy. And one day, while he was in the garden, sort of like staggering about, Timmy, the little, I don't believe he did this, but he was so mad. He got a pencil, and with the sharp end of it, he shoved it up the dog's ass.
Oh
And
shit.
I know, and the dog was yelping and screaming. And fortunately, he was medicated though, so he didn't catch him. I mean, Timmy had been waiting for ages. I think at that point, my auntie and uncle, the dog had got this cashmere blanket that was on the sofa, and the dog had ripped it off the sofa, peed and pooed in it, and sort of rubbed it in. And they were absolutely so peed off because it cost a fortune. But they had a doggy door, and I always wondered whether Timmy, because he's small, got through that doggy door and did that, so that they'd hate the dog. So anyway, I mean, I know it's a long story, and I mean, it's so embarrassing for him because it's so different. But he
Yeah.
was raped by an animal, and no one can tell, no one. He, there's no groups for that.
No, there's not, unfortunately. I mean,
And
like,
I
there
don't know
are,
if you've
like,
seen the size of a Great Dane, but they're bloody
oh, yeah,
massive.
these are, Great Danes are huge.
They're scary as well once they've got an idea in their head.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Like, when they go into attack mode, your best bet is to just run as fast as you can. That's a
Well,
literally your, that's a
that's
literally
why
your
my
best bet.
parents
Just run.
that's why my parents always had the rule that, they shouldn't be alone together. But unfortunately, he ran after him. Timmy couldn't get away quick enough, and
Yeah.
all hell broke loose, and he ended up being penetrated by a Great Dane. I'm glad he's anonymous now, thinking about it, because when I've said this out loud, I don't know.
It sounds crazy, but that does happen sometimes. It's not that common, but when it does happen, it's actually like, what the hell?
Yeah. I think we should open I mean, a bit of a palate cleanser here. Let's drop the link in the chat.
Yeah,
Let's
let's make
get
shit
people,
fun,
if
man.
anyone's
Like,
got any questions, I mean, I
just
don't
wondering,
mind.
just wondering, is that? Oh wow, we got people up in here pretending to be you. Look at this shit.
Let me look at the chat. Well, at least you know that at least I'm here, and
Yeah,
it's
exactly. You're right here. Like, yo, guys, quit
Joe, I'm
pretending to be
here. What you
here,
doing?
man. Come on, man. Try harder, dumb fucks.
Tangerine Cat is a fat guy.
Yeah, I call bullshit. I call major bullshit. Like, literally, what was it? Like, just the other day that we were FaceTiming with each other? Like, literally,
Tangerine.
I know for a fact that you're not a fat guy. Like, literally. Hey babe, when was it? When was the last time we FaceTimed? Like what? 2, 3 days ago?
Yeah, it was actually, yeah.
Yeah. So like, I know for a fact you're not a dude. You're all woman. Like, what the hell? Yeah, for sure. Like, right there's the link. Hop on up. And why do I get the feeling this is gonna be a fucking troll? I just got that feeling, but oh well. Wow, you see this, son? You see these fucking idiots right now?
No, I'm just looking. Sorry about that. I'm just looking at something.
Y'all motherfuckers need to back off, man, for real.
I've got a I've had a bit of an emergency. I'm just gonna. Do you want to just hold it for a minute and I'll come
Yeah.
back? Okay.
Yeah, what I'll do is I'll end this right here. Hold on, guys.